Hello, my name is Jono and this is my FILM203 Assignment 2 video essay. So activist cinema has always proven to be effective in its own right, though it's usually presented through the form of documentaries mashed with interviews and archival footage. And not many activist works can be described with the level of craftsmanship seen in Mangrove, the first of 5 films in Steve McQueen's Small Axe anthology series. Because while the traditional documentary style is effective in capturing the reality of activism, I believe the kind of movement seen in Mangrove is far more powerful when conveyed through cinematic dramatization. To begin with, the forefront of Mangrove is its commitment to realism. As an activist film about anti-racism and justice, Mangrove prioritizes itself with the pursuit of social realism, and McQueen's efforts in committing to the reality of the past is consistent throughout the film. From the music, costume design, and the many details throughout the Mangrove 9 protests, McQueen's loyalty to a realistic depiction is what enables his cinematic directing to enhance Mangrove as a piece of activist cinema. On top of that, Steve McQueen himself as a filmmaker is no stranger to the themes of activism and racism, which can be respectively seen in his previous works such as Hunger and 12 Years a Slave. And when analysing his work in Mangrove, you can notice how he blends his consistent style with the reality of activism. One of the ways McQueen applies his cinematic directing to Mangrove is through the use of long takes as a method of emphasis. As a long take engages the audience through a sense of immersion, the longer the shot goes on, the more we feel tuned into the performances and how they drive the story forward. Take this pivotal scene for example, where Darkus implores Frank to keep fighting. This scene lasts for about 3.5 minutes, and its unbroken simplicity allows the audience to truly feel the weight of the discussion, uninterrupted by distractions like editing and camera movement. McQueen often reserves these long takes for his most significant scenes in order to emphasize the subtext behind them, which can be seen throughout all his previous works, such as the hanging scene from 12 Years a Slave, which shows the protagonist struggling to survive for 1.5 minutes while others in the background ignore him, emphasizing how helpless the slaves were under oppression. The dinner scene in Shame goes on for about 6 minutes and highlights how awkward the protagonist is in a romantic context due to a struggle with sex addiction. Or the conversation scene in Hunger, where the protagonist debates the morality of his hunger strike, which goes on for about 17 minutes, all unbroken and uninterrupted. These are all examples of how this technique emphasizes important aspects of each film, and the reason it works here in Mangrove is because it demands a genuine emotional engagement and a genuine sense of rhythm of the British everyday. Essentially, this scene holds empathy and weight because Darkus is trying to convince Frank to keep fighting, not only for himself in the Mangrove restaurant, but for what the restaurant means for his people and his culture as a whole, which makes the long take very effective as the audience is able to immerse in the significance behind Frank's decision making in its entirety. Similarly, emphasis can be seen through McQueen's juxtaposition of chaos and stillness. The juxtaposition from chaos to stillness creates emphasis through the abrupt change of focus. For example, after this raid, we cut to a portrait of Paul Vogel, a Jamaican activist leader from 1865. And then in the following scene, when Frank becomes invested in protesting, we see the portrait in the background, symbolizing Frank's progression into an activist figure himself. This method can be seen again in a later raid scene.
Stay down! I've got nothing! Get back! Don't resist! Shut it, you fucking black bastard! Shut it!
Here the juxtaposition from the raid to the bowl settling down emphasizes the chaos from the police raid, as well as the following stillness when the police aren't present. This same technique can be seen in this scene from Shame, which directly emphasizes the protagonist's self-loathing and his struggle with sex addiction. Another more subtle way McQueen applies this directing is through audience presence. For example, this can be seen during the protest scenes. Rather than filming from the outside like archival footage, McQueen puts the audience within the crowd, which makes us feel like we're a part of the protest. This reflection of energy is also used in the courtroom scenes later in the film, as the cinematography becomes meticulously locked down and restrained, making us feel the same way the characters would fighting an uphill battle against the law. Now, looking at McQueen's direction with Mangrove, you could question why this matters if activism is the focus of activist cinema. But I think the reason for cinematic dramatization is because even though the story of the Mangrove 9 is about activism, it also holds immense weight in the emotional relationships and interpersonal stories of the characters. These characters, like us, are all real people, and a straightforward informational documentary just doesn't have the same emphasis on these very human moments that a film would. I personally feel like a lot of today's activist films and media is very in your face. It's asking us to care, but it doesn't truly make us care. And I think an activist film like Mangrove is far more powerful and influenced because rather than feeling like we're on the outside looking in, it genuinely makes us care by taking us on a journey with these characters through the struggle and eventual victory in the face of discrimination. And I believe this genuine investment in the activism and the people involved is what makes the blend of cinema a powerful tool in activist cinema.